everyone, and welcome to another episode of What's Cookin'. My name's Missy Lane, and today we're going to share the story Apple Farmer Annie in celebration of fall. Because I don't know about you, but when I think of fall or autumn time, I think of lots of different things, but among them are apples and pumpkins. Now we can enjoy apples all throughout the year, most types, but they are freshest in the fall. And a lot of people like to go and pick their own apples at farms in the fall time. That's a fun fall activity. So Apple Farmer Annie does just that. She picks her apples and then she takes them to the farmer's market to sell. This book and the illustrations were done by Monica Wellington. And I love the story itself, the simple text, and I also love the pictures. You'll notice, boys and girls, that this story is a lot shorter than the ones we've read so far. And this recipe that we're going to make today is actually going to be really short and simple too. It's probably going to be the easiest recipe that we'll make this fall. And I think you're going to like it. Let's start with our story, Apple Farmer Annie. Annie is an apple farmer. She has a big orchard of apple trees. And an orchard, boys and girls, if you don't know, is just a big area of land, like on a farm, right, that has rows and rows and rows of apple trees. In the fall, she picks baskets and baskets of round, ripe apples. Sometimes we call those baskets bushels. So you see lots of bushels there, loaded with apples. And there are 3 different colors of apples. They usually come in 3 different colors. Many varieties of those colors, but the 3 same colors. And can you guess what they are? Red, right? Green, and what's the other one? Yellow. You've got it. Red, green, and yellow. I think I like the red the best. She grows many kinds of apples. She sorts and organizes them. And boys and girls, you're going to find this hard to believe, but even though there's only 3 different colors of apples, there's actually over 1,000, like over 2,000 different varieties. Because there's Red Delicious, there's Granny Smith, there's Fuji, Pink Lady, so many different types. And so that's what she's doing there. She's sorting them. Do you see the doggy running away with one? He wants a little treat too. Annie uses some of the apples to make sweet apple cider. I don't know if you've ever tasted apple cider, boys and girls, but it is delicious. And sometimes on a cool fall day, I like to heat my cider up and I'll drink warm apple cider. She uses others to make delicious, smooth applesauce. And that's what we're going to make today. She loves baking muffins, cakes, and pies with her apples. Those are some other delicious recipes that you can make with apples. Did you ever hear of apple pie a la mode? That's how my dad used to eat his pie. A la mode means you put a scoop of ice cream on top. But she saves the most beautiful ones of all to sell fresh at the market. She's loading her truck to go to the food market, right? To the farmer's market. And can you see what it says? It says Annie's Apples. She loads everything into her truck and drives to the city. She has to cross a bridge to get there, doesn't she? Annie, the apple farmer, sets up her stand in the farmer's market. And you can see all the different things that she made. Her apple cider are selling. Her apple pies are going to go for sale. She made applesauce, apple muffins, candied apples. Yum, yum. Applesauce cake. And then, of course, you could just buy the apples on their own. in the bushels. There's even a such thing, I don't see it in Annie's, I don't see it here in her stand, but have you ever tried apple butter? That's another delicious thing that you can make, and it tastes delicious on toast in the morning. Lots of customers come to Annie's stand. She is busy all day long. By the end of the day, she has sold everything. She packs up to go home. Look at that. She's all sold out. Every one of her things sold. That's good for her, huh? And for her customers. Annie is tired, but happy. It feels so good to have her own apple farm. She likes what she does for a living, and that's good too. She's all tuckered out though, so now she's enjoying an apple snack of her own and reading a book while her kitty cat is curled up to nap with her or to go night-night. All right, boys and girls, as is the case with all of the books that we've shared so far, this one has some recipes in the back, and that's what makes it so extra special, right? Here's the recipe for applesauce that I'm going to share and demonstrate with you today. There's apple muffins, and there's the recipe for the applesauce cake. So if you ever check this book out, you could try all three recipes at home. I want to mention one more thing about this book and this author before we continue. She is also the author and illustrator of books such as Truck Driver Tom. She has one about a pizza man and one about a cookie baker. So any books by Monica Wellington, I highly recommend. All right, so when you go into the Fall into Fun page, you'll see a list of ingredients, also with some table talkers, and of course the recipe reprinted for you in case you want to print it out and use it at home. But these table talkers are fun because it gives you other things to talk about while you're either cooking your applesauce or enjoying the applesauce together. I already told you that there's over 2,000 different kinds of apples, but did you also know that, this is interesting, you can get very sick from apple seeds? Yeah, I didn't know that either. So you can go ahead and plant them if you want to try growing apples in your own backyard. It's fun to plant them, but make sure you don't eat one accidentally because you can actually get very, very sick. So it's another interesting fact. So you can print this out, again, along with the recipe. Now I'll meet you back here in 1 minute so we can get started with our applesauce. All right, everyone, welcome back. We are now ready to make our very own homemade applesauce. Now, because I'm not in a kitchen, I'm here in the BPTV studios, I have to make do with what we call a hot plate, right? We don't have a stove here, but this hot plate is going to allow me to boil the apples and the water, which is one of our first steps in making applesauce. You'll see that I already have some of the apples quartered here and already in the pot. I wanted to save the other ones, though, to do with you. It's also important to note that I, of course, thoroughly washed my hands and the apples before bringing them down and getting started. Now, a lot of people have an apple peeler and an apple corer, and if you have one of those at home, great. But you could also use your standard vegetable peeler to peel an apple, or a paring knife to peel the skin off. Now, please be careful, no matter how much experience you have in the kitchen, please be careful when using the knife. And if you're probably 4th grade or under, you're going to want to do this with an adult supervision. Okay, but the tip that I like to give when peeling an apple is to make sure you're holding it at the top, the stem, as well as at the bottom. Okay, that'll give you a nice grip on it. And then you can just kind of go away from your hand, away from your body, peeling that skin off. Okay, we'll kind of zoom in here to get you a better idea. But I would go to the side to scrape all that skin away. Now, because we wash the apples, it's okay if the skin doesn't come all the way off, right? We eat apple skin all the time, but you should try to get most of it off for applesauce, just so that it makes for a smoother recipe. Oops, some of our apple juice is flying here. You might want to turn the apple some spots to get the skin better, and that's fine too, just as long as you keep that grip on it so it doesn't slip away from you. my peeler needs sharpened. Hopefully yours at home is working a bit better. Again, I usually don't use the peeler. I like to use the paring knife, but I wanted to show this was another way to do it. I'm going to turn it this way to get the top of it, and this way again to get the bottom of it. Okay, once the skin is off, or almost all the way off, you can go ahead and cut your apple to put in the pot. Now, you can dice them up into small bits, that's certainly fine. You can also just put them there in chunks. You can see that for my first apple, I just quartered them. Quarter means 1/4, right? So, and I forgot my cutting board here today too, so we're gonna be very careful cutting on this table. But what I mean by quartering it is just going 1, 2, 3, and 4, getting all sides of the apple. Now, if you don't want to waste, you can nibble around that core before throwing it in the trash. All right, so the recipe at the back of the book calls for 4 apples. 2 are already in my pot. I'm going to peel the next one with a paring knife. And again, I make sure that I have a good grip on the apple, and then I'm being extra careful when I'm going around with that knife. I'm not rushing, but really taking my time. It's a fun game that I used to play with my kids when I was peeling an apple in front of them to see if I could go all the way around the apple and not, keep one peel, one big long peel. Almost not quite on that one, right? So then we're going to have to go get the rest of it, and that's fine. You can do short strips. You can go for the long strips, just as long as you're getting most of that skin off. Now you'll see the apples that I had today in my fridge happen to be red, so that's what I'm using for the recipe. But you certainly could make applesauce with any variety of apple. I wonder if you have a favorite kind of apple, friends at home. I mentioned that I like the Fuji Red or the Pink Lady apples the best. What's your favorite? I think no matter what apple you eat, it tastes delicious when dipped in caramel dip. Have you ever tried that? Yeah. All right, I'm going to quarter this one again. I'm going to go 1, 2, 3, and 4. And take those 4 pieces, place them in the pot. I only have to do 1 more apple. Again, forgive my mess here. And just because I prefer to do it with a knife, I'm going to do the paring knife. But again, you can peel your apple with a peeler if you prefer. Now the recipe only calls for a 1/2 cup of water. So after our 4 apples are placed in the pot, I'm only going to add a little bit of water. And that might seem odd to you at first, but that is right. We don't need a lot. We wouldn't want our applesauce to be watery. The water is just going to help them to soften and to boil. So I have my 1/2 cup ready to go. Hopefully you do as well, or you can go and grab it. And I said earlier that this was going to be the easiest recipe that we're going to make, and that's in part because there's only 4 ingredients, right? There's the apples and the water, and then you only need sugar and cinnamon. 4 ingredients total for this delicious recipe. Quartering them again, 1, 2, 3, and 4. That was a small apple. I want to make sure I get all of it and not waste, so I can cut off a thinner strip and put that in there too. Okay, now we said a 1/2 cup of water. So I brought down a pitcher of water with my 1/2 cup. I'm going to fill that to the top and then pour it right in with my apples. You're going to then boil it on your stove until those apples get nice and soft. Again, I don't have a stove. This is called a hot plate. It's already been heating up down here, so it's already pretty hot. I would cover this if I had my lid handy, but even though my hot plate is already hot, it's still going to take about 20 minutes for those apples to soften. So we're not going to wait for that here today. I'm just going to tell you what I would then add. The recipe calls for a 1/2 cup of sugar, and I have a little bit over half in here. once these apples were softened, right, and I would keep mashing with a fork or a potato masher or a meat grinder, whatever you had, I would keep mashing. Once my apples were soft and mushy, I would then add a half a cup of sugar and a half a teaspoon of cinnamon. Now, if you have a half a teaspoon handy, go ahead and measure it if you like to be precise. Missy Lane doesn't always measure. I like to do what I call eyeball, which means I kind of just look at it and judge when it's enough, right? I kind of just estimate. So I might put a little bit more than a half a teaspoon, and that's okay too. So our apples are now boiling. We would add cinnamon and sugar, keep stirring. If you like a smooth, I guess mushy applesauce, then you would want to mix and mash and keep doing that until it was very thin and smooth. I like mine chunky, so I didn't mix all that much. I made some earlier this morning that I brought here in this jar. This is my own homemade applesauce, and I want to take the lid off just to show you because I think you'll be able to notice a few things. We could just zoom in on this here. Maybe you can't, but if I spoon it out, you might be able to see some of those chunks. I don't mind chunks. I wanted mine chunky, so I purposely did that. Okay, but you can certainly make yours as smooth as you want by just continuing to mix. You'd also put it through a sieve if you wanted to strain it and make it smoother. You can also see, what I also wanted you to notice, is that it's a little bit darker than the applesauce you might get from the grocery store in a jar, right? Or those little Mott's cups that you eat. And why do you think mine is darker? Because of what I just said, right? I added some extra cinnamon because I like mine extra cinnamony. So mine, of course, has more cinnamon, which then is making it a little bit darker. Yours might not look like this. Yours might be lighter. Okay? So there's no right or wrong way to make applesauce, but your basic recipe is here. It is loaded onto the Fall into Fun page of the library's website, and again, also located in the back of that book. The one other thing I wanted to mention is the add-ins that you can put into applesauce. We mentioned that it only takes 4 basic ingredients, which is true. But we could add additional ingredients if we wanted to be creative. I've put raisins in my applesauce before. You could add craisins to your applesauce, which is dried cranberries. So really any kind of dried fruit to go in with the apple fruit would be a nice touch. Some people even like to grate a tangy, sharp cheddar cheese. Now, I've never tried this before, but I love cheese, so I'm sure it would taste delicious. One thing I like to remind viewers all the time, boys and girls, and people that I'm baking with in the kitchen or cooking with in the kitchen, is that one person's yuck may be another person's yum, right? My friend Patty, who also lives here in Bethel Park and loves to cook, taught me that a long time ago, and that's always stuck with me. One person's yuck may be another person's yum. So you might not care for cheese in your applesauce, but maybe somebody else in your family does. And that's okay. You never know until you try. So I encourage you, boys and girls, to experiment in the kitchen and try new things. So after you make your applesauce, get creative and add something else. Add the cheese or the cranberries or granola could be good in there. What other ideas can you think of? If you come up with something super tasty, will you email me and let me know? Great. Boys and girls, I hope you enjoyed today's story, and I hope you enjoy your homemade applesauce, and I'll see you again real soon on What's Cookin' with Missy Lane.